Boom. And we are live with another episode of the Brown Water Banter podcast. My name is Jared Seymour.
My name is Joey Cates.
That's right. We got a great show for you lined up this evening. In the house, we have the Executive Director of the Department of Marine Resources, Joe Spraggins. We want to thank him for stopping by and chatting with us today. And our good buddy Justin over here writing down notes already right out of the gate from Tyler Skiff, making us look super official. So I like that. But before we jump into the conversation this evening, we're going to thank the sponsors of the show like we always do, the people that help keep the lights on for us over here at the Brown Water Studios. Right out of the gate, Dr. Robbie Williams over at Southern Magnolia Smiles, man. If you're looking for a great local dentist, hit him up on the socials at Southern Magnolia Smiles on Facebook and Instagram. And when you're ready to book that appointment, just give him a shout at 228-215-1202 and tell them that we sent you. Our buddy Tyler over at Taylor & Cox Law Firm. If you find yourself in the need for legal representation for any reason, they specialize in felonies and misdemeanors, DUIs, family law, divorce, child custody. They come highly recommended from a lot of people that we know. They've been practicing law in Pascagoula, representing the people on the Mississippi Gulf Coast for 30 years. So if you find yourself in the need, in the boat that needs some legal representation, give them a shout at 228-696-0111. And we want to thank them for sponsoring the Brown Water Banter app as well. Our buddy Rocky over at Sea to Swamp, you can look them up as well on the socials, Facebook. Just type in C, the number 2, and then Swamp. He's got 2 locations now, one in Goshen, one in Gulfport. He's slinging all your outdoor needs, man. He's got apparel, rods, reels, tackle. He does reel repair. He's slinging kayaks out of his Gulfport location, and he's also got a fishing tournament coming up, Fishmas he calls it, raising toys and donations for children, for needy children for the holiday season that's coming up as well. So go check them out, Sea to Swamp. We appreciate their support. You can give them a call if you have any questions at 228-205-3964. And our buddy Kendrick, we just hung out with him the other night, man, over at Forever Young Men and Women's Health. Again, you can look them up on Facebook. If you feel like you can't get off the couch, you want to get back in the gym, you want to start moving around again and feeling better, give Forever Young a call at 228-363-6623. Put your care in the hands of a professional. Let them run some lab work on you. Maybe you need some hormone replacement. Your testosterone could be low. You could have any kind of vitamin deficiencies. Let Kendrick figure it out for you and get you optimized and back on track. Randy Bosarge, our District 5 supervisor for Jackson County, he's still stayed on board with us as a sponsor after this election season, and we want to thank him for that as well, and all the cool things that's going on in Jackson County, man. He's up to snuff on all of that, and like I said, after the first year, I think we're going to get him back on here and talk about everything that we got going on in the county, because it's a lot, and there's a lot of growth going on. So, Randy, we appreciate your support there. I think I beat you once again, Joey.
You're beating me. You're like a machine.
Yeah, I'm rattled. I'm in my groove. You know, it's the end of the year.
I thought I seen your eyes closed.
Yeah, I can do it. I can do it blindfolded, so it's not even a problem here. But like I said, we have the Executive Director, Department of Marine Resources, Mr. Joe Spraggins. We appreciate you being in here with us this evening, sir. We have a lot of people on the show from the outdoor community, a lot of charter boat captain guys. I was telling you before the show, we had some people from NOAA in here. Who else, Joey, am I missing?
Fishing banks.
The fishing banks, yeah. We talk a lot on the show about regulations that, recreational fishermen face, commercial fishermen, putting out reefs with the Mississippi Gulf fishing banks and stuff like that. And we wanted to have somebody from the DMR to come on the show and just kind of give us their take on a lot of these issues and explain to us how y'all see things from your side, from your agency. One of the ways we like to start the show off is if you could just kind of give us your background and how you ended up at the department.
Well, thank you first for having me. And my background's a little different. It didn't have anything with DMR written in it.
Okay, good.
I had 34 years in the Air Force. I'm a retired brigadier general from the Air Force.
Wow, really? Thank you for your service. Yeah, we just had a good Veterans Day celebration this past weekend with some buddies of ours. So.
So I did that for 34 years. And during Katrina, I took over emergency operations for Harrison County the day Katrina hit. And they did not have a director, so I took over that day for them.
Okay, all right. So that was like would you call that a battlefield promotion?
Well, it was one of those things that, it was needed. I picked a day to do it.
Okay, yeah.
And then I did not know it was going to happen, but it did. But anyway, so I stayed with them a couple of years and got them helped through all the issues of Katrina. And during the same time, I was with the Air Force also working as a battle commander at the 1st Air Force.
Okay.
And so we did the air sovereignty of the United States. And I'd come out I was active duty and came off of that into the Guard drill status type. And that's what I was doing, being able to do both. But and it was a good career. I started working with DMR in 2013, and that was when they had the big shakeup.
Okay.
And Jamie Miller is a good friend, and Jamie was the congressman's chief of staff, and at the time, and he had come off, and basically they had offered him the job as executive director, and so Jamie gets in and calls me, and he says, "Hey," he said, "wonder if you'd like to come help me." And I said, "I don't know. What do you want me to do?" And he said, "Well, we got a lot to straighten out, and I need your help. And would you mind coming helping me?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I'll do it for a year. I'll give you a year to help you straighten it out." Well, that's been 10 years ago.
I was going to say, what year was that? 2013?
And
that's been a long year.
Yeah, it's been 10 years now. And I stayed, as basically the chief operations officer for about 4 years with him. And then Jamie moved up to the Jackson to go to work there. And then Governor Bryant called me and said, "I wish you'd take this job full time, the executive director."
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I became the executive director. My background in fisheries was that I fish very little.
Okay.
But I love to eat them.
Right.
And I didn't know. I'll be honest with you. I couldn't have told you any part of what was going on in the fisheries world.
Right.
But one thing I found out about it was the same thing I found out about the military. I fell in love with it.
Okay.
And I fell in love with the organization and what they were doing and how they were operating. And so it just became something that every day was a new challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Every day I woke up, I went to work, and I was going to learn something new.
Right.
And I had a great group of people working with me that was going to help me do this, and they teach me the things that every day we sit down in a meeting, and I learn something.
Mm-hmm.
And I just enjoy that. I enjoy that more than anything in the world, is being able to learn something new every day. And so it's worked out great. We've been able to promote within mostly for a lot of people. And our chief scientific officer is Rick Burris. And Rick was in the fisheries world. He was in head of fisheries before that, so for the DMR. And then my chief operations officer is Patrick Levine. And Patrick was I guess he was around lieutenant. No, he was a captain in the Marine Patrol. Spent his time in Marine Patrol life. And so he very sharp, both of them master's degrees, both of them very sharp individuals.
Yeah. And, he was at the Veterans Day lunch at the Butcher.
Okay.
Patrick was, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then and Leslie Brewer is our chief financial officer, and Leslie is a CPA and a lot of background. So we were able to get a lot of good team together, and then the rest of the team has just been perfect. I mean, it's been great to have them. So every day is a new day.
Sounds like
and,
it, yeah.
So when they came in and flipped the house, did most of the people that were there stay? I know they started chopping a little bit, but the most of the core stayed?
When you say the core, a lot of the senior leadership left, most all of it. And then the core of the workers, that actually doing the job every day and what we do to take care of the estuaries and our resources, but they mostly stayed.
Yeah.
We had a few that we weren't able to keep, but we kept a large majority of them.
Right.
Yeah. So obviously your background in the military, I'm sure, helped you come in. And when you talk about losing the executive leadership at any organization, having to step in and be the guy who's in control and build the team back and then get back onto the mission, I guess your background probably helped you out with that tremendously, right?
It did. And I think that's what Jamie was looking at, too, whenever he said, "Hey, I need somebody that can come in and look at something." I had been at bases before that basically had issues, and I took over a base that had 123 IG complaints.
Wow.
And so I took that base over, and we were able to turn it around. And so a lot of things that we've done, it's you can do anything if you just look at it, as long as you just sit down and go by the book. Whatever the book says, we got to do it, and then common sense comes in.
Yeah. Where do you start in a situation like that? Do you try to figure out what your people are doing right and then build from there? Or?
Oh, of course. Yeah. You always look, obviously the wrong's going to pop up in your face.
Right.
And, but the right is there, and you look at what's right and what is great about this organization. And then you look at that. That's your number one thing. All right. And when you see that, you see what's great. Now, where are some of the shortfalls that we're looking at? And let's look at the shortfalls and how can we fill those shortfalls? the other things, as far as the ones that if you want to call it a bad apple or whatever, it's gonna come to the top anyway. So we'll find that sooner or later. But the idea was to be able to get the people to be able to get the agency back. DMR is a great agency.
Yeah.
And, they had some issues. And, when they had some issues with some things that was going on, I think that the biggest issue that DMR had was they had never been audited.
Mm-hmm. That is never good for any organization.
And it had been over 20 years, and they'd never, roughly, and they'd never been audited.
We'd say when the cat's away, the mice will play.
And,
Yeah.
Well, and because of that, opens up the door for things to happen that you're not, Dr. Walker, good man. I have nothing but good things about the man. He was a good man. I worked with him before when he was at DMR. Great man. He's a good person. And, but there's just things that build up that you don't see.
Right.
And it just automatically, when we took the Go Mesa over, and in 2018, when they gave us our first big check of $20-something million, and I called Governor Bryant, and I said, I'm going to see if I get the state auditor to audit me. And I called the state auditor. He said, I can't do it. I ain't got enough way to put it in there. There's no way it'd be 2 years before I audit you. So I called Governor Bryant back, and I said, hey, can I pay for it out of the fund and do it myself? He said, oh, yeah. So I independently had an audit right off the bat.
Well, that's smart. That's good.
And
yeah.
so we have independent audits every year on everything that we do.
That's probably the first time that's ever happened.
Right. Yeah. They were like,
please come down and audit us.
Yeah. I tell people all the time, the military taught me about an audit. An audit can do two things. Number one, it can tell you if you are making a mistake.
Right.
And number two, it can tell you that you're doing good.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So you need to know both of those. And if you know, I don't want the OIG to come in and tell me I'm making a mistake. I want to find it before that and fix it. Mm-hmm. And that's the whole idea. So, yeah, I'll if somebody says audit, I'm fine. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think nobody would argue with more transparency and accountability in any government agency. So it's great to hear that that's something that's important to you. What do you think? Like, as far as like Joey and I feel like we've learned not so much about the DMR, but we've learned a lot about how just certain things work, like with the Gulf fishing banks and getting a reef put out there. You don't realize like the red tape and the amount of work,
paperwork,
just like put it on the barge, drive it out there, knock it over. If as long as it's in the right area, we're good to go. And it's not that way. What have you learned as a guy, you said, who didn't really fish, just like to eat them, didn't know a lot about the DMR since you've been there? What's the goal or the mission for the DMR, the umbrella? And then also you listed a lot of people at a lot of positions, some of the internal stuff, like more the micro stuff that y'all do at the DMR.
Well, our goal is to rebuild the estuary the best possible we can.
Okay.
And, we've had some natural disasters and some man-made disasters that have caused a lot of issues with us. Just to go back to 2005 when Katrina hit.
Right.
Katrina did a lot of damage to, our estuaries and so in turn did a lot of damage to all our shrimp, oysters, crabs, and everything else and finfish. So we started rebuilding there, and then about that time you get started back as I looked at the records, and then in 2011 with Bonnie Carey, 2010 before that, they had the oil spill.
Right.
And then the oil spill goes in and causes all the damage, and then we come back behind it with the first opening of the Bonnie Carey over so many, big major opening in 2011. And then we get back and we start working at it again, and then come back and obviously have openings in 16 and 7 and 18, and it was just a kind of a track record going here. Mm-hmm. And then in 2019 had the biggest Bonnie Carey opening in history.
Right.
120 something days. And so it basically wiped out the estuary. Mm-hmm. So we're having to go back and look at ways to do it. I mean, you take one step forward and two back. Well, we got to keep taking that one forward. That's what we got to look at. Mm-hmm. What we had, the good part about it is our finfish is pretty good. We have some pretty good finfish as far as our speckled trout. We made a big move in it around 2017, somewhere along in there, 16, 17, to change the length to 15 inches and 15. Right. Well, a lot of people didn't like it at first, but I think they're coming around to it, and they've seen it. And I think you'll notice that Louisiana just changed theirs.
They just changed it. Changed it, yeah.
They cut from 25 to 15 and went to 13 inches, and then only one over, 20 inches, I think.
Yeah, two over 20. 2 over 20, yeah.
But we don't, that's a good thing. I mean, we got to look at it. You got to look at where it's at. And we have scientists every day that are sitting there, and they're basically watching everything about what that happens in the finfish. And they're telling me that, hey, this is where we're at. This is what we need to do. There's one thing that I've learned, that science is pretty smart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, to be able to listen to the scientists and understand what they say and understand how they're doing it. And they give you facts, and when they put facts in front of you, it's hard to dispute facts.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we're looking at. Then, you know, obviously we've got that, but so the oysters are a major issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We really have not had an oyster season since 2018. Hopefully this year we could have had a season, but instead we decided to go back and lease the bottoms to people. So we leased 80% of it. And so what we're doing now, we're in the process of finalizing that. We had over 80 applications to lease the bottoms. And so I think we'll get a lot of good private individuals that are coming in there with their companies, and they're going to go in and they're going to work at it. And they're going to, you know, they're going to culch their own oyster beds. They're going to seed their own oyster beds, and they're going to go work at it and try to do everything that they can to raise those oysters because they have money in it. They got skin in the game.
Right.
And in turn, it helps us because every time an oyster grows, it filters water.
Correct.
And, you know, a full-size oyster filter about 50 to 60 gallons of water a day.
It's a lot of water.
Yeah, and it is when you think about how many is out there.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing, and hopefully we'll get that finalized before the end of the year, and we'll be able to utilize those fishermen and companies to be able to go out and do this. We'll still, in turn, seed the oyster beds that we have. And what we'll do with that is use that to feed the other oyster beds that they're growing and everything else. And so we'll try to keep that going. We'll put some in areas that are not harvestable, but so they can continue just to seed.
Yeah.
And then we'll look at once we get going after another year or so about what we have any recreational season or not. But the main goal is to get the oysters into water.
Right.
And when we do that, everything feeds off of them. I mean, you know, if you think about it, the larvae and then go into the spat and then the little small oysters, a lot of things feed off of them.
Right.
And the little things feed off of that, and then the big things feed off the little things. And
Circle of life.
Right.
Yeah, it's a circle of life. And so that helps a lot. And we're able to do that. Our shrimp season is coming back. The problem with shrimp is we can't sell it. You know.
How you mean?
Well, the price of shrimp is about
ridiculous. That's what I thought.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, about 75 cents a pound. Okay, you're going to go out here and run a boat that, that gets
Diesel's $5.
$5, and you're going to come back with 75 cents a pound. You can't make money.
No.
And that's because of the imports.
Right.
And the imports are coming in, and they're basically coming in and selling them for hardly nothing, just to get them offloaded. And so how do we stop that? How do we regulate that? And we've talked to several of our congressmen and senators and the governor and others about it. And there's always loopholes when you get into that. The number one loophole is that, well, if we put an embargo on them here, what are they going to do about what we ship to them? Mm-hmm. So we have to look at everything and try to what's best for America and what's best for us, for the coast and what will happen with our fishermen. And hopefully we'll be able to do something shortly with that and be able to change it around because, when you get 5.5, 6 million pounds of shrimp and the dockside values of $6 million, that's not very good. When it ought to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 18 to 20 million.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's a big, huge thing because I know a couple of years ago the big Gulf shrimp push was there because the fishermen were just basically getting bullied out by the overseas shrimp.
Yep, that's exactly what's happening, and most of them are coming out of South America. And the crabs are coming back good, so that's another good thing. And the other thing is flounder. Flounder's starting to return better.
Yeah, and those have not been here since the oil spill.
Yeah, it
killed a lot of them.
Yeah, and we've had a lot of turnaround on it. So those things are doing good. And so our goal, we lose about 200 acres a year of just the grassland, marshland. And so our goal is how do we rebuild that?
Right.
Because if we don't rebuild it, then we're not going to have the oysters, the shrimp, and everything else. It's just not going to happen, especially finfish. And and the shrimp, we got to have it. They got to have a place for them to grow up and be able to move out into the deeper water.
Now, is that natural destruction that's doing that, man-made, or a combination of the two?
Well, I don't know where it's man-made per much, but I guess that nature is just doing it in general.
Okay. Right.
And, a lot of places losing more than we are. But the idea is what we do, we'll go out and we'll basically do a beneficial use area. And where we did the Round Island.
Mm-hmm.
And it went in and basically put berms out and went back and helped to rebuild that island.
Yeah, because it was pretty much sunk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that helped a lot. And we did some places in Pascagoula. We're doing some others over in Bay St. Louis. We got a big area over there. So we're just trying to work what we do to make it better. And that helps to rebuild the estuary. And once we do that, that'll, if we can save whatever we can save of our marshland is the best that we can do. We're looking at Pelican Key. If you know where Pelican Key is, it's on the west side of Cat Island.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically underwater. Well, our idea is let's build it back up. Mm-hmm. Making another island out there and see what we can do. We're looking at a lot of places that way. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, so you were mentioning the oyster stuff earlier. So you specifically said bottom. So I recently went to one of these oyster farmer fundraisers recently and learned a little bit about that. The guys who have right behind Deer Island and some other areas. Is that different than what you're talking about that you're leasing out to other?
Yeah, that's the off bottom that you're talking about. And basically they're fishing it and they put them in cages and raise them from that. That is going great. We have quite a few people that are doing it. And I tell you what, the oysters are selling good and, and they're great to eat. You ever get a chance, they're wonderful. The problem is it just takes a lot of money and a lot of effort to do it. Yeah. And, and a lot of people, it's hard to get labor. Mm-hmm. It's hard to get the people to do it.
Yeah,
sure.
Now they leased, if I'm not mistaken, didn't they lease the plots from the state?
Yeah, but it's they leased an acre at a time. It's like $80 an acre or something that they lease.
And in the beginning, DMR was giving them the babies, weren't they? At one point,
we had to work at it. It was kind of a little hybrid deal. The state of Mississippi, by the law, I can't give you something.
Right. Okay.
All right. So what we had to do is we basically worked it through Auburn University, and Auburn came down and gave them the spat to put on the shell, the spat on shell to start their nursery with.
Okay.
And so that's how that worked. And the cages themselves, we did not give them the cages. We reused them, but we got them started till they could go buy cages.
I got you.
And one of the things that the Bonnie Carey, we have around $22 million that we received in the Bonnie Carey funds, and part of that is to help them. And so we're working on that now. And one of the things is maybe putting a barge out, in the area where they can, instead of having to bring them in to tumble them, they can tumble them right there on the site and be able to do it, save a lot of labor. We increased the area to where the water wasn't as deep and move closer to the island, and that way you can do it and you can wade and turn them.
Yeah, instead of being on a boat.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I've been out there fishing and seen some guys out there this deep working.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and the thing about it is you can turn an acre about a tenth, well, not maybe a tenth, but if it take you a day, you can turn an acre, right? Basically, if you're on the water walking, if you're in a boat, it'd take you about 4 days.
Yeah.
So that makes 3 or 4 days. So that makes a lot of difference in what they're doing. So we are trying to rebuild the oysters, and one of the things, like I said, being able to build reefs and being able to seed these reefs for the others that are coming. I'm trying to work out something with a grant that we have through Restore to be able to help, even if possible, to seed the ones going into their own bottom, and help them and seed some of the others. And I'm trying to do anything I can. I mean, we just need to get them off the dead center and let them move because it's a lot of money.
Yeah. The Bonnie Carey, I know there's still a big, huge lawsuit. States going after him. Y'all are going after him, I think. Am I correct on that? Well, somewhat.
Yeah, it's hard to go after them. I mean, it's the federal government.
Right. So there are still, that's still in the works. So
it is. And we got the Gulf Coast Coalition, that is working hard for us, and it's a group of people. And we help them. We gave them some money this year, with funding to help them to be able to do it. Because they're private, it's basically it's made up of the mayors and council members and all and some supervisors, and they're working hard to try to find a way to be able to offset what we can do. We're trying to find a way to be able to what could minimize the opening of the Bonnie Carey. Well, obviously this year nature minimized it because there's no water.
Yeah.
All right, so we don't have to worry about it. But when it's a cycle that our Earth gets in. And it will come back. And when it comes back, what can we do? And a couple of things that we can do is we could basically, we have 2 diversions. One, it's called the Almond, one the Union, that we're working on right now. And the Union diversion is just north of the Bonnie Carey,
Right.
and the Alma diversion is just north of it. And the Alma goes to the west, and the Union goes to the east. And they're just small diversions, but they go into a cypress forest is what they're scheduled to do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in a situation like the Union would open up if we had a 1 million cubic feet per second. If it was coming at 1 million cubic feet per second at that point, they would open it up and it could put as much as 50,000 cubic feet per second across that, in that area. And then that will take off some of the load of what's coming down into the Bonnie Carey.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if the Alma was built, it would be 1 point. Well, I got them backwards. The Alma goes west, the Union goes east. And but anyway,
One of them goes towards Baton Rouge, right? Yeah.
well, it's south of Baton
South Baton Rouge, yeah.
But it goes over towards the river there, but Chafalaya.
Yeah, Chafalaya Basin.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then the other one that would come in, and it would be in that cypress forest just north of Lake Pontchartrain. And it's about 25,000 cubic feet per second. When it hits 1.25 million cubic feet per second, they would work. Well, those two things could take a lot of time off of opening of the Bonnie Carey, because when it reaches 1.25 million cubic feet per second and 17 on the gauge, we got to open the Bonnie Carey.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if we had this sucking it away, and now it's still the one that's coming to the east is still going to eventually come into Lake Pontchartrain, but it's going to filter all those nutrients out of it and everything else, and it's just going to be water coming in, and it's going to come in at a trickle rather than a flood.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully we could do something with that. That's a big thing. I think would be huge if we could ever get it worked. It's going to take quite a few years to get it. We're asking the Corps to look at it, and the Louisiana, both of them in Louisiana territory, and they're working hard to try to do it. So I think that could be something. I know we don't like the word diversion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But if it's a good diversion, that's okay. But this is not going to hurt the estuary to do it. I don't think. I don't know that answer 100%. We're doing a study on it. I'll tell you that.
I got you.
Yeah, we know it was devastating to the Gulf Coast when it was open that last time. I mean,
it pretty much. Well, fish. Some of the fish can move. Mammals. I mean, the dolphins and stuff like that can move. Oysters, they're dead.
Yeah.
They ain't going nowhere. They're done.
Yeah,
Shrimp larvae, all that stuff that's up in the marsh, they're dead. It's gonna kill them all, pretty much.
Yeah. The salinity of the Mississippi Sound all the way over to Pascagoula was zero.
Zero.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And nobody's ever got any record or anywhere close to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, now it's just the opposite of that.
Now it's like 28.
Yeah. 28.
Yeah. That's why the oysters are so good.
I heard
but
too.
like that's what goes into, because I've had a lot. I used to freshwater fish a lot down here. We would always compare freshwater fishing here to lakes and rivers and things that didn't have as much Mother Nature effect. And you get in the brackish water stuff, and we've talked about stocking freshwater fish down here, and I've always had this like what a waste. It's like you can stock a freshwater fish down here, and if he goes anywhere near the marsh, within a year or two, it's going to get flooded with salt or something, and it's like battling against Mother Nature in this world is a whole nother ball game, because you have no control over super high tide, super low tide, high salinity, low salinity. In a lake environment, they all have locks and dams, so they can control a slow. They draw them down in the winter, and they intentionally do all this. Well, you can't intentionally do anything down here. In the same way with freshwater fishing, when you take the Pascagoula River effect, it's so much fun up there in the springtime, but you're just one rainstorm away from that thing going to the flood stage, and the fishing for the next month is out of the question. So we miss a lot of crappie fishing in the spring, which is the most fun to me because the river may be at flood stage. Well, it's the same thing here. Hurricanes and low salinity, high salinity. Low salinity kills all the grass over in Back Bay. There's no eelgrass because of the summer with extreme salinity. So just juggling all that is regardless of regulation and all that, just the simple fact of juggling the effects of Mother Nature are a beast in itself.
Yeah.
It's the real world down here.
Yeah. Well, it's like they control a lot of that. So like they can control who gets water and when. Down here, it's like Mother Nature will tell you when I've got excess water and what are you going to do with it and where you're going to send it and all that.
Where is y'all's jurisdiction fall in the brackish water? Do y'all follow it all the way up the rivers?
No, basically I-10.
Okay.
And, we'll go north of I-10 and work and do things like that. But wildlife pretty much it's mainly out of the brackish by then, once you get north of I-10.
Mm-hmm.
But we just kind of dual hat that anything from Highway 90 north or not I guess I'd say the railroad north. We just kind of work together with each other. But they only have a couple of people, so we're 90% of it, and so we have 31 patrolmen, and so we're able to patrol the area and look at it a lot better.
Yeah, for sure. That's another thing that you don't even think of when you. I mean, I guess you do when you think of DMR, but y'all are actually out there patrolling, making sure. Is it just about fishing? But y'all do boating, like BUIs. Y'all do the whole thing, right?
We do everything, and boating safety is one of our major things. And trying to make sure that people are safe. And I can't say enough about the Marine Patrol. They do a great job out there, and they work hard. And we got some great people that are working there. And Chief Wilkerson is over at Kyle Wilkerson. He's our chief, and Chief has done a great job. And they go out and they're not trying to write you a ticket. They're trying to help you.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of times that they'll tell me that they'll pull up on a boat and there'll be something like 3 kids and 2 adults on the boat, and instead of having 5, they only have 4 life preservers. And they'll give them a life preserver, and they'll write them a citation and tell them, whenever you bring me that life preserver that you just bought and show me, I'll tear it up.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great idea. That's teaching them. That's getting that safety there and everything's happening. Same thing with flares. If you don't have working flares, a lot of different things like that. Now, they're pretty stickler when it comes to the fish.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
And, especially with our snapper, because the snapper, we have probably the best system in America as far as the snapper. But it's probably too good because, obviously it doesn't fit into what NOAA sees it. And then in turn, we have to use some of their MREP, and which they do their recreational study off of. And their MREP they're working with us right now. I can tell you this. Andy Spellcheck and them with NOAA and are working with us very hard to try to change these things and get things worked out. And hopefully next year, we'll be able to do a thing. We'll follow L.A. Creole, which is Louisiana's model. Louisiana's model has turned out to be perfect for what NOAA would like to see. So why don't we look at that too? And so what we're talking about doing is a side-by-side, doing a Louisiana model against MREP next year to see what that will do about bringing up, and also we're looking at a possibility of putting some type of for you to do refish, you're going to have some type of an endorsement or another license or something else, to be able to do it, because that way
recreational.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because now, if you look at it, there's 80,000. We sell around 80,000 saltwater fishing licenses a year. Well, NOAA considers all 80,000 of them fished.
Right.
And I mean, this is just the way the system is. And I'm not saying, but their MREP system looks at it and says most of them fish. Now, if you go to Florida, which 90% of Florida is coastline.
Right.
It's all that coastline. That's a different story. You go to Texas where they got 10 times of what we've got. And those areas, but you take Alabama and Mississippi when you only got a small amount. Well, a lot of those people live in Tupelo. They don't come down here every weekend to go fishing.
Right.
And, so the system allows that. But if we did it to where you had some type of endorsement or whatever that said that you were catching reef fish, then we could probably cut those numbers way down.
Okay.
And that would be a lot better. Then they would only say, well, we only got to look at these. This is all we got to do. And then it would help us on that. I don't think I don't want to say that we're going to by any means put a fee on it, but I don't think most of the people that are out there that are fishing every day, especially recreational law, that they would care of spending. If they spent $5 to get an endorsement,
right?
I don't think they would care because they're already spending $200 every time they go out to where they're going to fish and back. So I don't think that would matter to them. But I don't like putting fees either. And
right.
We'll probably try to start it with an endorsement to where you just basically do like if you're buy a hunting license, actually going to go any type of
migratory birds.
Migratory birds, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and let's see how that works. And that's probably what we'll do at first. We'll probably look at it that way and say that's a good way to do it and try. But we got to do something to cut the numbers down that they are looking at, and be able to do that because. We can't. They cut us back 100,000 pounds this year.
Unbelievable, yeah.
And And so that's just part of the life. And, we're trying to fight it, and hopefully we'll get some of it back, and hopefully it'll work out in the very near future. And as I said, that the NOAA's trying to help us. They understand it too. Everybody knows that the system's not right.
Well, so I'm really glad you brought this up. So that's what when Joey told me you were coming tonight, I was like, well, I want to listen to this, because the last couple of years, I've worked in the fishing industry for years, and now do a little bit of work with the American Sport Fishing Association. So I serve on a couple of committees there, one of them being governmental affairs, which snapper is the number one topic in the governmental affairs subcommittees every year. And the last couple of years, I've met some guys who serve in much higher positions that are in the weeds on this, and they have shared with us, and I've asked a lot more questions about this data. And as I've learned how grotesque this data that's currently being used is from a number standpoint, it is. But then they're like, but everybody knows it. And that's it's even more difficult to hear that. It's like, we can all agree that the numbers are wrong, but we still go by the numbers. And that's where the huge snapper count of how many years ago that came out to be a joke and all that. And also wanting to commend you and your group. So I've never listened or never attended any of the DMR meetings, but the first meeting after snapper season closed in Mississippi this year, a notice came across, and I realized you guys live streamed it. Mm-hmm. So I jumped on and listened to it, and I really appreciated you definitely kind of straddled the line of being honest, which is what the recreational fishermen want to be, but also saying, hey, I'm in a position where I technically can override this, but it's not the right approach. And I actually, even though I'm hoping you would override it and let me go snapper fishing again, I can appreciate the fact that, hey, we need to work with these groups to get it changed going forward, and not one off at a time. And like you're saying, I've never heard it put that way, but that's a fantastic way to do away with these bogus 200 boats a day fishing every day of snapper season, every one of them catching a limit.
Right.
I don't even think, and because they don't even take into account bad weather days. So you take into fact the first day of snapper season, and I'll just go back to last year. First weekend was a disaster. The wind was blowing 30.
Nobody.
So the first week, if there was a snapper call, they're a better man than I am, because like they are way mad at her than I am. But none of that's taken into account. And how many beautiful weather days are Tuesday, Wednesday when everybody's at work, and then come Friday it comes a gale. And as I've learned more about these numbers, I'm like, man, this is crazy how it's being computed. And that was one of my questions to you was, I've learned a little bit about those numbers, and then I also know we have the tails and scales system. So can you speak to the data that you're talking about, that it's way too hard to even go into in an hour or so of a podcast, but there's data collection being done that's saying there's this many saltwater fishing license. NOAA's assigning each of those licenses a limit of snappers, so that's how many they're going to catch. And then how is the tails and scales data being used to determine quotas or determine when it's closed, I guess?
Yeah, well, we did the tails and scales is very accurate. We're about somewhere in the neighborhood of 95 to 96% accuracy. And
as I've talked to more people in other states, every one of them have said Mississippi has the best system, and
then we're good. And but the problem is that it does not marry up with an MREP, and which is NOAA's. And I mean, NOAA looks at it, and they have to live with it. And that their whole idea is, okay, I see what you're saying, I understand, and they all understand, but this is what science is telling us that we have to go by, because and it's an antiquated system. I mean, when you do something like a mail-in survey or whatever, it's antiquated, And phone surveys are hard to do anywhere anymore.
Right. All the spam calls, nobody answers probably anywhere.
Yeah. And so people, and a lot of people just answer the question just to get out of it, and not even worry about it. But they understand that, and they know that ours are. Like this year, we went over about 20,000 pounds that we caught more than what they said we had to catch. But the reason I did that is I went back and looked at it, and we did the SSC and the whole group, the scientists, they came back and said, we need to raise this because the numbers were wrong. We need to raise it across the Gulf entirely. Well, that would have given us about 20,000 more pounds just in that one little study. Well, they said it was best available science. So I am fishing against the best available science.
Mm-hmm.
And I told Noah that I'm fishing against the best available. But he said, well, it hadn't been signed off by the secretary. And I said, that doesn't matter. It's still the best available science.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and you've already got proof that it's the best available science. And on top of that, you go back and look at it, and they've been very cordial with us. They're not trying to slap us about this or anything. They and you go to the Gulf. Did we overfish the Gulf quota? No. You got Louisiana that's going 4 fish a day and can't even catch a quota.
Yeah. Correct. Still rolling.
Well, one of the things I was going to say is there was a week this year. I think Alabama was closed. There was a week this year. I think in the same 7 to 10 day period, Alabama reopened their season, Mississippi closed theirs, and Louisiana come in with increased the creel limit like in the same week.
Right.
And it's like none of this makes any sense. And that was where I was going to ask you, as I heard at the summit, I guess a couple months ago now, that there are some conversations about the coastal states coming together and saying, hey, like we've got to do this as one to get to the total Gulf quota. And we don't necessarily have to go by landmass anymore. Let's do what's right by the people. So there's trying to come together and do it as one instead of just this one-off stuff.
Well, and we're looking at a couple of things too. It's called regional. And the regional way it would look right now would probably be Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas, and then Alabama and Florida. And the reason for that is when we say regional, we would have a quota for regional, and we would fish that quota.
Yeah.
And then, once we got to that quota, we'd be fine.
Yeah, not based on state lines at all.
That's right.
Total quota.
Well, and the problem is, if you go out, you fish, you don't stop your boat when there's not something on it that says, you're out of Mississippi, you got to turn around and go back. No, you go and fish wherever you want to, but it's where you land it. It's what they counted.
Well, that was one of my questions too, is you try to relate it to speckled trout, where I can buy a Louisiana license, leave Ocean Springs Marine Mart, go to Chandelier, catch trout, bring them back to Ocean Springs Marine Mart, and as long as I have the Louisiana license,
you're good.
As long as you don't stop and put a hook in the water.
That's
exactly.
Right.
But in Snapper,
Mississippi waters.
In Snapper, you have to launch in the state that the
No,
season.
you don't. You have to. It doesn't matter where you launch. I mean, it doesn't matter where you catch a fish; it's where you land a fish.
Well, typically thinking you would come back to where you launched from.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of people they could launch their boat out of right on the border of Alabama, come over, catch a Mississippi fish, and take them back.
Yeah, if Alabama's open, absolutely. Yeah. So they're mining Mississippi snapper technically.
And we're mining Louisiana, and we're mining, and they're mining. Exactly. It's all back and forth that way.
Right.
Yeah. And so the idea was, the fish don't have little markers and say they have to turn around.
Right.
Yeah.
And
those street signs.
Yeah, they don't pay attention to them if they do. But we just need to be able to take it and say common sense. If it's X amount of million pounds, if we don't exceed that, and then when you mentioned the snapper count, came back over 3 times the amount that they thought it was, and it's probably even higher than that.
Well, didn't I also see that Noah's going to do this again and just appropriated money to do another count, if you will? Well,
they're doing another, but it's going to be a different way.
I hope so.
Yeah, it's they're trying to work it out, and we're also looking at other things. I mean, you got the grouper, you got the triple tails and others, and triggerfish, and we need to look at that. Because a lot of our fish, Alabama and Florida catch them the limit in the Gulf before they ever get to us.
Exactly right. Yeah.
And so we need to have that ability too. So they need to be able to let that fish come. The numbers need to be different. If it was regional, they could only catch so much, and we could catch so much.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense too, as well, because I think Louisiana just did something on their redfish too, didn't they? Like in the past 2 months or so.
They went, it's the bulls. They were getting rid of catching and keeping the bulls, is what it is. And then the Release Over 20 just did theirs. The citation for redfish in Louisiana. You might have saw that.
Yeah, and I think the federal cobia went down, but Mississippi is currently still. Yeah. So.
It needed to, though.
Yeah, but we haven't seen the issue in Mississippi. The issue's in other states of where that problem
Cobia,
is.
Yeah.
Florida.
Yeah. Because they, by the time they migrate, do whatever they do, they're catching them all too quick.
Yeah.
But we're trying to do every one of them. Anything that we can find, we're trying to find a way to do it.
So did the season that you reopened for Mississippi, did that come from like where you were talking about you got that additional science and data?
That was that additional 20,000 pounds.
Yeah. Is there any way next year you could like do that by a week, and you could wait for the weather to be nice and like, just open it that week, and then when the weather's bad, close it?
Yeah.
That would help a
SSP
lot.
doesn't have enough on his
Yeah.
plate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
He's going to put that down in his notes, I'm sure.
I try to go to church on a regular basis. I try to pray to the Lord on a regular basis, but I don't know that he's going to really give me that information.
Look, I'll come over and go over the weather forecast with you every week, and we can
combine
announce it.
calendars.
Yeah.
The bad part about it, weather be beautiful, and then all of a sudden it'll change.
Yeah,
Right.
especially with like a smaller boat too. That helped me out a whole lot.
Was I hearing the question that you asked earlier, Justin, correctly? I want to see if I got this right though. So like NOAA comes up with the amount of fishing licenses sold, and then they determine how much they think people are catching based off of that.
Well, it's almost like they just go to the max. They say
Right, but my
was-
question, at least specifically for snapper, does the Tails and Scales app, shouldn't that completely fix that, at least for that fish?
Well,
completely?
we thought that, and we fought that for the last 4 or 5 years. You know, and when Secretary Ross gave us the permission to be able to have our own state data, and we've been fighting that, and it just hadn't got. You know, NOAA's not going to come off the best available science that they have, and they have, and a better way of putting it. They own the property.
Okay.
All right. So, you know, it's federal waters.
Right.
They own the property.
My house, my rules.
Yeah. I mean, I could fish all I wanted to in state waters, but our state waters aren't that deep.
Right.
Now, if I'm like Texas, yeah, that'd be great. You know, I just go out there and catch what I want in state waters. But you got to live by the rules. And, you know, and once again, I think that it's just taken a long time, but I think people are trying to come around.
Yeah.
There's been, as I've gotten more into the I guess more recently, and been a part of more of the conversations that are the back end of things, it definitely seems, and you know, Lord knows you can post something on social media nowadays about snapper, and it, you know, that's like the worst world of social media, because all this craziness gets started between commercial and recreation, all this kind of stuff. But I will say, from being in rooms where these conversations are being had, there's a lot more positive conversations that are going to benefit the fishery going forward. It still may take a year or two to flush out to get to the season that is actually appropriate for Mississippi or the Gulf. And I think, you know, you always hear about, the reality is I would say it's hunting and fishing. As a recreational hunter and fisher is the best conservative for the use of the property, if you will, than anyone else. That's because technically you're more invested in it, in comparison to the amount of time you get to use it, if that makes sense. So
95% of the people are not trying to do anything
exactly
wrong.
Right.
They want to save it as much as you do. I mean, if they see a herd of deer and they see that they're small ones and they're not any larger bucks, they're going to try to manage that around to get around that. And the same way they'll do anything else, they're going to try to manage it the best they can. One of the things that I'm working on too is I don't know if you know this, but Louisiana, Alabama, and Mississippi, our state waters only go 3 miles. And, you know, and it's 3 miles out is where our state waters, and then it becomes federal. Well, Florida and Texas is 9 miles.
I thought ours were 9.
No, that's just for reef fish only.
Okay. All right.
But so here we are, and we're trying to get it, and NOAA's not arguing it. They're fine with it. They want to do it. And one of the things I want to do is get Congress to change it and say that we're going to put 9 miles for everybody. And so what that will do, especially you take your charter boat fishermen.
Right.
All right. Now they're not restricted to 3 miles. They can go out to 9 miles. State charter boats, so they can go out there and catch fish and do things, and a lot of reds and everything else out. And it's a better deal for them.
Yeah, we had one of our buddies, James McCandless, and he's a charter boat captain. He made that same comment. He said one of the problems that he sees is a lot of charter customers are making the short drive to Louisiana because of the longer seasons and the larger bag limits of snapper specifically.
Yeah, yeah. When you boat up to FH1 and FH2 during snapper season, especially the small boats, there's only so many there.
Yeah, then they're not going to regenerate that quick.
Yeah, and then once you get them first, especially if there's good weather, they can wipe them off quick. But the smart ones learn what a hook looks like, and they don't. But
a state charter can't go there.
Correct,
because it's past 3 miles, and they can't go there. And so why restrict them? Heck, they're part of our business in the world down here. They're bringing people in for tourism and everything else. They're doing a fantastic job. They go out and you know, give people a chance to catch something and enjoy it and have a good time.
Right.
And you know, and most of them, when you get like everybody was talking about, whoa, you're gonna wipe out the Red Bull the big reds, the bulls, and all. You'll do. No, they won't, because these charter boat people are not going to do that. What they'll do is they'll go in there and if there's 4 of them on the boat, they'd say, "Look, guys,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
do you really want to do this and hurt that?" I've been out on the boats with them. I know what they do.
Plus, they got to clean them.
Yeah, but that and the fact that they'll talk them into keeping the other ones, the smaller ones, and then maybe one big one if it's. It might have to happen, but on the average, no, they're not going to do it, and so they know what it needs. That person coming down here has as much thrill catching that big bull that it does eating it. They'd rather catch it and then let it go in and catch it again.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like marlins and anything else.
Well, it's weird because it's almost like something like that happened by default. Like, I can't imagine a reasonable reason that would make any sense as to why those 2 states are 3 and everybody else is 9. It's almost like somewhere in the paperwork, something.
It came when they became a state in the union.
Yeah, so like,
wow.
It went back that far. When they became a state,
what's sad is,
I think things
the
have
world we
changed
live in now.
A little bit since then.
It's sad is like in 30 minutes, like that could be changed in 30 minutes. Like someone say, yeah, that's right. All right, run this through here. This is not some type of party. Like how ridiculous is this?
I wanted 15 miles, but I ain't got anybody to go with me on that.
That's it. Yeah, if you're gonna ask for it.
Ask big. That's right.
But that you're talking about the catch and release stuff. So Captain Kyle Johnson, you guys are familiar with a charter guy down here, and I think I saw something where he posted that, and this guy fishes a lot. He posted something about the first time any of his clients have kept any fish as far as trout and stuff go recently, because they've been big advocates for catch and release. And it was really, he's at Chandelier a lot, so it's Louisiana, but like we've said, they don't know the difference. It's still a Gulf fish, and it would definitely fall into our region in Mississippi that a lot of people are doing it for the enjoyment of being outdoors, that chase, that fair catch, that kind of stuff. And there are creel limits in place for those who catch and bring them home. There's nothing against that either. So I think you're seeing a lot more people that, again, and it goes back to that recreational angler and hunter is much more conservative or conservationist in mind than people really realize. Because what happens is they get in this heated battle and they're very passionate about the resource, and they sound like lunatics at times when they get to battling on social media. But it's like, these people have a lot more in common than they realize. They're just all talking so loud they can't really get to the point, in those conversations.
Well, and those charter boats, I've been out on several of them, and they'll talk to each other. And one of them's having a rough day, they'll tell them, "Hey, I got something over here. Come on over here. Y'all get something."
Yeah.
They help each other, and they do. And Ronnie Daniels is our representative on our council, on our commission, and for that. And Ronnie does a great job. And I, once again, I don't think any one of them are ever trying to do anything but what's right.
Right.
But they need to have the ability to be able to do things because they're fighting against Alabama and Louisiana.
That's right.
So they need to have that. They need to have that ability to do something.
Yeah. Mississippi used to be the seafood capital of the world. I don't think people remember.
It's been a while.
It's been a minute. It's been a little while since that was true, but we got to get back to that.
Yeah.
I know one other thing I want to talk to you about is how does the DMR, Justin mentioned earlier about live streaming some of the meetings, but how do y'all go about getting your message out other than doing stuff like this?
Well, we do different type of workshops and other things, and we try to be involved in most anything that has anything to do with wildlife, and I'm on the Wildlife Foundation board, and so we work with them on everything we can, and we're going to sponsor. I think this year we're looking at it to be a part of a sponsor for the Billfish tournament.
Okay.
Because that's huge. It is huge. They just broke the record in Alabama. It'd been held for how many years we had it? Quite a few. 1,094 pounds or something like that. But that is huge. We want to do what they are looking at, a women's billfish tournament.
Okay.
All right. And then we're looking at children and what we can do. We try to get the word out. And, if we can't teach a child how to fish, then we're not going to have fishermen very long.
Right.
And so we need to do that. And we're working with different groups to do that. We're trying to talk. We get on different type shows like this. Ricky Matthews and WLOX and WXXV, and we just talk anytime we can. We try to get our word out, and we put out different things. And the other things that we do is we just try to help people get into the business, and helping people get there is what gets us to the point where we need to be. So if we can help you to be able to run a charter boat in some way, somehow, if we can get you the ability to do what you need to do, then that's helping you and it's helping us. And it's helping the whole Gulf Coast, and that's what we're working on.
That leads me to my next question: is what do if people are out there listening to this, whether they're recreational, charter boat, or just getting into it to begin with, how can they become a part, voice their opinion, get more in the know when it comes to y'all?
They can call us anytime, or they can come see us anytime at the Bolton Building. Obviously, when we have our commission meetings, we have time for people that wanted to ask any questions or do anything else. We will help anybody. If you want to do something to get into the business, or you want to do anyway, or you just want to learn about it, maybe you're just a private individual who want to learn something.
Right.
We'll help you any way in the world we can. We're doing at Lyman Fish Hatchery. I don't know if you know where it's at.
Yeah.
It was a freshwater fish hatchery.
Old 49, isn't it?
Yeah.
Old 49.
And we have turned it into a saltwater fish hatchery.
Okay.
And we released about 200,000 speckled trout last year, this year. And our goal is to get to where we release 1 million speckled trout a year. And one of the things that we're learning is when you release them little fingerlings, they get eat up pretty quick. But that's okay, because they're feeding something else. So we're trying to work with USM and us and growing some bigger ones, and maybe 6 to 8 to 10 inches long, and putting them in the water. And then, so now we got fish that are big enough to spawn and move forward in a year. And that's something that we can do. And so we're working on that. We're working hard on it.
Good deal. I think we lost the camera, Joey. Justin, did you have another question?
I was just going to ask you, in one of the meetings I was in last year, someone kind of opened my eyes onto creel limits and then, bycatch. So whenever they're putting quotas out there, these regulators have to take into account some type of expected mortality rate of released fish. So we started talking about creel limit. So red snapper obviously was the one that was the topic of then. So what the conversation was that I'd never really thought about is you kind of get hit with a double-edged sword. Is like the more restrictive you make creel limits for people to catch, the longer they're going to fish to catch that limit. Therefore, the more fish are going to catch and release, and then there's a certain mortality rate they assign to that. So snapper is the easiest one to look at, and you say, all right, if you only keep 3 or 2 per person, 16 inches and above, how many fish is someone going to go through to try to catch those 16 inches versus if you just said, all right, we're going to go 4 per person, 12-inch minimum. A lot of people will just go catch, 4 12.5-inch snapper and leave the rest of them alone. And have you been involved in any of those conversations? Or your perspective on that?
I have, and my scientists are not willing to go with that, and because they think it will do more damage than good on it. I've looked at it because one of the things I said was, okay, you can have one under 16, so you'll keep one of them and won't throw it back, and but obviously you're a fisherman, and a 16-inch fish, okay, that's a nice fish, but you'd like to have that 20-inch. And if you know they're there, you're going to keep throwing them back to catch it. And, I wish there was a way that we could do that. The descending devices, we talked about that, putting them on the boats, where they can help them descend quicker. Because
I think now there's a regulation that you have to have.
Yeah, you have it, but it doesn't a requirement to use it.
Yeah.
And so then the next thing is, you look at what can we do, because a large amount of the mortality, especially of snapper, is coming from that, just exactly what you're saying. And, it doesn't take long. If you got 2 or 3 boats out there fishing in an area, those dolphins, they're going to come in and
they destroy them.
Yeah.
And then the sharks.
Yeah.
And by the time they hit the water,
Yep.
Dolphin eat
still staying part of the ecosystem.
Yeah, but I mean, but they getting free. They're getting a buffet.
They are.
Free meal too.
Laid out to them. So you're exactly right. I wished I could come up with a good answer. I've tried hard talking to the scientists about it, and one of my ideas was if we went to 3 fish a day and one could be below, what would that do? And they still think that if you didn't say it had to be below, it wouldn't make any difference.
Yeah. And I guess that was my thought is, what you let off with there is it's not going to, the people like me, in all honesty, is, but I don't, these guys went, like I'm free lining for them. So I don't catch very many real small ones, so like I'm a lot of live bait too, but the people like me aren't really catching a bunch of small ones. But, I would like to think the people who are going to stick around and keep throwing them back to catch the big ones are going to do it. You may still get a few people that just get their limit and leave. You've 12 inches, 14, and I don't know. I'm just throwing thoughts out there.
And I agree with you. I think it's a great idea. We have talked about it in depth many a days. It's something that's still on the table.
Yeah.
And if we can find an answer, we will. And, Matt Hill and Trevor Moncrief are the two of the best at our fin fish. And they're doing it. They're the ones that are giving me the ideas of this, is that, is it good or bad, whatever.
Yeah. It's all got to be science based, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the kicker.
You gotta know that you're not overfishing the situation.
Yeah. Right.
And, obviously, if you went to 3 fish a day and one of them had to be, you would lower your amount of time that you could fish, because you're going to have that many more fishermen out there catching that much. There's a lot of positive and a lot of negatives.
Right.
And it's a question of how can we put enough positive together to override the negative.
Yeah. And I think that's what's hard is you get, because I was one of these, I guess, is until I started engaging with people who knew more and could explain it to me in layman terms, you don't really understand all of the different angles that's being approached to do the most conservative approach for the maximum amount of experience that you can offer anglers, but the long-term effects of what you're dealing with, also taking into account Mother Nature and the craziness we deal with each summer and stuff like that. So it's hard to get a lot of these conversations that we're talking about people yelling at each other is because they're not understanding all of the different options that have been tried, all the current data collection that's going on to try to make an argument or prove it through science to give you something to stand on that says, all right, here's what we're going to do and why. So I think there's a lot of positive the DMR provides to the state, and they don't always get the positive recognition, that you do for conserving that. I know I love the resource, and I'm glad to get it whenever we can, for sure.
I think it's like you said, though, everybody, whether people realize it or not, is fighting to protect the
they're
fisheries.
Super passionate about it.
But somebody's got to make the rules, and somebody's got to enforce it.
Well, what happens is, and especially social media, certain tidbits of information gets thrown out there, and we all know a small clip from an interview or a small piece of data, blast it out.
Anecdotally, everybody thinks
people want to run with it, and next thing you know,
we're all guilty of that. The
way social media works is you get people arguing both sides, where they're now feeding into this algorithm that's making this post go crazy. That's errant information, and it just snowballs at that point. So
was there any other thing on your notes there that we haven't touched on? The DMR.
One thing, the Bonnie Carey, the payout. I would like to.
You mentioned that earlier, and I didn't realize there had been a payout.
There's a payout of what we did. Just to give you an idea, we did the charter boats first because they don't have trip tickets or anything else. So the only way we could do it is if they had the license, and we were able to, give them a fee for that. And so we were able to do that. And I want to say that it's like $6,900 and something a piece. There was 72 of them that we were able to get those out, and almost every one of them have been paid. 50 out of 72, I see it is, right? $6,950. And 50 out of the 72 have already been paid. It's just waiting on them to get the paperwork into us to pay them. Mm-hmm. So that's something good that helps them. Just like, we had money around $6 million, to do for commercial fishermen. Now that's going to include every type of commercial fisherman. Well, what we looked at, the one that was totally wiped out was oysterman. Mm-hmm. All right. And so if you had an oyster license in 2019 and then the 5 years prior, and you did, sell oysters, then we went back and we said, okay, we're going to give you an initial payment of $15,000.
Wow.
Because they're still hurting. They had one.
Yeah. Decimated.
They're still hurting.
Yeah.
All right. And so then we went back and we took the other 139. That was, I think it was 118 of them that had that. And then we got 139 that if they didn't have an oyster license, but they had a shrimp or they had a crab or finfish, whatever, they got $7,500 as initial payment. Now, what we will do after that, I think, is around 85, companies, individuals left, that we will take them and we will look at what they caught by trip tickets and use the data from 2014 to 2019, and we'll look at what their share is, and if they lost, we got I think it's $108,000, a little over $108,000. If it get anything, we're going to be able to make everybody whole up to $108,000. Okay. So what you would have lost, what you would have caught in a year, if it was $107,000, you're going to get made whole. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we got to look at for 2019. Now there'll be a small amount, just a handful that won't get made whole, but most of them are big companies, and most of them are big shrimping companies, and they shrimp just because this water was closed. They were shrimping other places too, mm-hmm. So they were able to help make up some of their loss. But we will hopefully get everybody up to that figure, and then we got like the seafood dealers. I think it's 31 of them, and we're giving them $12,700 a piece. And then we got the off bottom that what you're talking about. A lot of them lost it. They're getting $18,700 a piece. And then we got the live bait, and they're getting $18,000 because they couldn't catch anything in 2019.
Yeah. Well, nobody was fishing. They had the waters closed. You couldn't have sold any bait anywhere.
Well, they couldn't catch them anyway. There wasn't nothing there.
Yeah. Right.
So hopefully we're going to get this money out before the end of the year.
Okay.
And we're getting out the initial payments are going now. And now we're working on the other and to get it all out. And what we've got to do, we got to find a way to keep people in the business. Mm-hmm. Because right now, the shrimpers, the oystermen, the crabbers, it doesn't matter. The finfish, they're all numbers are going just like that. Mm-hmm. Because people just like, it's not worth it to me.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. And, we had a large group of the Asian community that was shrimpers, especially, and other fishermen. Well, a lot of those younger kids are just saying, I'm not going to get into this. I've had to live this. I'm not doing it. Yeah. And, it's just like a lot of people don't want to follow the footsteps of their family. Mm-hmm. The kids coming up in today's world, they're saying, I want to go do something different.
Yeah, I want to go to college. I want to do something else.
Well, that's hard work. That's hard work.
It is hard work. So, I asked if he would do one thing. Anytime that you're talking to anyone or doing anything, ask them to buy Gulf Fresh.
Yes. And
ask the restaurants, is this Gulf Fresh? Mm-hmm. Is it Gulf Fresh? If it's not, I don't want it. Mm-hmm. Well, and, there's nothing better than if we push Gulf Fresh, mm-hmm. then it will happen. And it's not that much difference in the price. Mm-mm. And then, and it's maybe a little bit more, but it's not that much. But I tell you what, the taste is 100%.
Oh, yeah,
you can't beat them. You cannot beat them. So,
yeah. I got one more question.
Go ahead, fire away.
Who sets the no-wake zones in the state of Mississippi?
The counties and the cities.
Okay, it has nothing to do with the DMR.
Well, it does. It has to come through us, and we have to build, and we'll enforce it.
Okay.
All right. We look at those very hard, but it has to be brought to us by the county, mainly, of the cities, to say that they need this. Everybody's got a house with a pier wants a no-wake zone.
Mm-hmm. Right. Now, I want one right behind the small craft. Is that did people go back and forth about? Is that still a no-wake zone? Is it not a no-wake zone?
There's a certain area there. When you talk about the Biloxi Small Craft Harbor, there's a certain area there that's not. You got to get out past closer to the island. But the area right around it, we've looked at that a lot, and most people are pretty good.
Well, my thing is now, back in the day when Deer Island was nothing but rocks there and nobody was really hanging out, you could run right there because you had the breaker. Now the states come in, filled it all in there, and it's on Sundays, there's 20, 30 boats right there, and you got people running like crazy, throwing wakes and stuff like that.
I thought that was a no wake right there.
I thought it was too.
There's some signs up, I know.
Yeah, there used to be painted on the back wall of it, but somebody said if you're off of that wall
X amount of feet.
I think that's what he was talking about. Yeah, it's not a no wake zone.
Yeah, in the center out there is not.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
Yeah,
I thought the whole thing was.
Mm-mm. Yeah, because
it's the same over by Gormflows, right? Like you get outside of that channel and run closer to the deer, you can
run as far as you can.
Yeah, and most people try to abide by it, and it depends on the weather. Weather causes people to do a lot of things. They'll run in there real quick because they're trying to get in or something like that. But most people try to abide by it. And most of the places we put no wake zones is where launch areas are.
Right.
because it's tough for a person trying to load a boat and with the weight coming across
The
it.
Iberville boat launch is the worst.
Yeah.
Oh my Lord!
Talking about
Especially when them big
110.
when them big boats come through there. No breaker.
Well, that's kind of the Biloxi Yacht Club right there. It's,
Right.
It's in between.
Now
those
they patrol
two
that
notes.
pretty good.
Well, it's not a no wake there.
I've been stopped before.
Like right in front of the
South of Biloxi Yacht Club.
Yeah.
That pier that comes out.
Really?
Yeah. Yep. Waves.
So
slow. And I was
it
not on the
says
plane.
no wake on the yacht club pier. Now I don't know if that's a
What's
true
left of
yacht
it anyway.
club.
Yeah.
If it's true
That's
that
not
way.
very deep in there.
It's not.
No,
and I was
yeah.
going slow, but I was casting a small wake,
Yeah.
and I got one of those.
Yeah.
Probably when a wooden boat show was going on.
It actually was. You're right.
That's
I
why,
remember that.
because
You're
y'all's
right.
guys were out there
Yeah.
policing it when
Yeah.
the wooden boat show.
We, most of the time they're just trying to get you to slow it down a little
Yeah,
bit.
Safety,
and like I
yeah.
said, I wasn't going super fast, but I'm all for it. So I was like, hell yeah, I'll slow down. That's my favorite place to cruise anyway.
Yeah.
So, but you're right, Joey. It was the wind. I forgot about
Yeah.
that. So that probably had something to do with it. But man, I think that was a great conversation.
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
really appreciate you stopping in here today. Like I said, we've talked to a few people from the department, but we wanted to get the real take on everything. We appreciate you bringing the sheet there with the bullet points. I think that was a great conversation. I hope everybody in the comments that chimed in, we appreciate that as well. I hope your questions got answered. I think we covered it, huh, Joey?
Yeah, we knocked it out. I know y'all got some events coming. Y'all do the boat shows and stuff like that, kids casting, and you find all that stuff on y'all's website, right?
Right, you sure can. And anything that if you got any questions, just call us. We're there. We'll help you any way where we can. And we appreciate y'all allowing us to be on the show.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
We
thank you.
appreciate your time stopping in, and
We thank y'all for doing this.
yes, sir.
Yeah,
It's our pleasure.
And I'll say, so I've fished a lot the last couple of years, and I've been checked a few times where in the previous years it was very, not a whole lot of patrol out there. But I've had really positive experiences with the agents out there. They've actually done a lot of this stuff. They've helped share some stuff with me that I didn't know. I have a little boat that I flounder out of some. One of the nights I was launching, a couple of the guys were headed out and was sharing with me a couple of things. I think I made what was supposed to be like a funny comment to the guys, like, hey, you want to check me now so you don't have to chase me up on the bank, because they were in a big boat. And the guy's like, no, go ahead. He's like, but you have flares in that boat, don't you? And I looked at him and I'm like,
No, I don't.
like, I thought it was 18 foot or bigger, and it's like 16-foot boat. And he's like, no, you see that bridge right there? Anything south of that bridge, regardless of how big it is, requires flares.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of standing there in the parking lot thinking, all right, so do I go floundering or do I go home? So
Your move.
Yeah.
and I think I said, I kind of said,
You got any flares?
I kind of made a comment about, well, what should I do? And he's like, up to you. And
Yeah,
he kept walking. So I went floundering that night, but the next day I did go buy flares and have all that now. But like you're saying, those guys they're not looking, there's not a budget. They're not, hitting quotas for tickets and stuff. A lot of it is safety. And it's like everybody's kind of anti-patrol, and then you see a boat wreck where a kid got hurt or different things, especially these insane holiday weekends out there. And Back Bay is where I'm at a lot, and it's just chaos over there at times on certain weekends. But I've had a positive experience with the guys, and even when they're at the dock, doing the snapper stuff, they seem to be very engaging. Some of them are straight business like, which I can appreciate. They got to get through a lot of boats and that kind of stuff. So I've had a positive experience, and I think maybe they get a bad rap a lot of times.
Yeah.
Well, they, like you said, they're there, and the rivers are dangerous.
Yeah.
Those curves in those rivers, you don't know what's around that
I don't
curve.
like it.
Mm-mm.
And,
Stay out of them.
people just need to understand, just because your boat will run 60, you don't have to run it.
That's right.
Mhm.
And, because you never know what's around it. And nobody wants to hurt somebody else
Yeah.
or hurt themselves. Nobody wants to do that. And, it's just like anything else. If you want to run fast, get out in the big water.
That's right. Where the
You
big
know,
boys go.
Yeah, and, get out in the water where you can run and there's not anything around you.
There's
You
nothing
can
that
see
frustrates
forever.
me more than seeing these giant boats. I was up Fort Bow, and I mean way up there the other day, and there was, I don't know, 38-footer with quads on the back
Mm-hmm.
on plane doing those curves up Fort Bow. I mean, right behind where them houses are behind St. Martin High School.
Yeah.
And I was just like, luckily I was with a buddy of mine in his bass boat, but if I'd have been in my aluminum boat,
It'd been a
it'd been
bad
ugly.
news,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, slow it down, people. That's the word
Yeah,
of the
that's
day.
right.
So, Mr. Joe, we appreciate your time again.
Thank you. I
so
appreciate
much.
it.
We do
Yeah.
it again. Let us know if anything you got coming up that we can help, pump out to our audience as well. So
We will. Thank
Yes,
you
sir.
very much.
All right. And thank y'all, everybody watching on the live, the replay, and on the listening on the